All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to This Explainer, where we take complex, sometimes incredibly intimidating ideas and, well, break them down so they actually make perfect sense. Today, we're looking at something that sits on our desks, rests in our laps, and lives right there in our pockets: the computer. Now, it is so easy to look at the cold metal casing of these machines and feel totally overwhelmed by the complex wonders they perform, right? I mean, it feels like pure magic. But I'm going to let you in on a beautifully simple secret hiding inside every single computer out there, from your everyday smartphone all the way up to the biggest supercomputers in the world.
We've all seen those computer ads that just bombard us with intimidating jargon. 1600 megahertz, 32 gigabytes of DDR3 SD RAM. It sounds like complete alphabet soup, doesn't it? It's designed to sound super impressive, but honestly, it usually just leaves us confused. But underneath all of that cold, hard terminology, a computer operates exactly like a relatable, everyday scene. A student sitting at a desk in a classroom. Yep, that's really it. If you can understand a student doing their homework, you can absolutely understand how a computer works.
Because at the most basic level, every computing system on the planet consists of just these three simple pieces working together. 1, a processor. 2, a memory. And 3, a mechanism for input and output, which we usually just call I/O. That is the whole shebang. It literally doesn't matter if you're playing a massive complex video game, calculating the budget for a giant corporation, or just, sending a quick text message to a friend. These three components are doing all the heavy lifting. So let's explore exactly how these three parts map perfectly to our student.
If you were to pop the cover off a desktop computer, you'd see this large printed circuit board. It's called the motherboard. Kind of looks like a complex, futuristic city from a sci-fi movie, right? But for our analogy, this is simply the student's desk. This is the flat surface where our mechanical student sits, spreads out all their materials, and gets down to work. All those little chips and connectors you see, those are just the different compartments and tools resting right there on that desk.
Now, if we take that physical desk and turn it into a logical blueprint, we get the secret map of the computer. This represents something called the von Neumann architecture, which, while it sounds really fancy, is basically the foundation of almost all modern computers. And you can clearly see our three main characters right here: the central processing unit on the left, the main memory on the right, and the input-output system at the bottom. The arrows, those are simply the paths our student uses to reach over for their notebook or pick up their pencil. So let's break these down one by one.
Okay, first up is the processor, or the central processing unit. In our classroom analogy, the processor is the student's brain. It is the active, thinking part of the whole operation. Think of a child intensely focusing on solving a math problem, carrying the numbers over and adding them up in their head. Or imagine a grandparent sitting out on the porch, carefully thinking through the tricky clues of a Sunday crossword puzzle. That focused, active thinking, that is exactly what the processor does. It is the brain doing the active work.
To be a bit more precise, the processor interprets and executes programs. Just like a student reading a teacher's prompt on the chalkboard and figuring out what it means, the computer's processor reads instructions and figures out what to do next. And here is why this is absolutely crucial. Without this brain thinking through the instructions step by step, absolutely nothing else in the system can happen. The desk is just a piece of furniture. The processor is what brings the whole system to life.
Next up, we have the memory. If the processor is the student's brain, then the memory is undeniably the student's notebook. It's the secure place where the student keeps all their information so they don't have to hold it all in their head at the exact same time. When the student needs to remember a specific fact for a test, they just flip open the notebook and look it up. Same thing here. When the processor needs data, it just reaches over to the memory to grab it.
So, what exactly goes inside this notebook? Two very important things. First, it stores the data, which are basically the facts. This could be numbers, words, or even the colors of a digital image. Second, it stores the programs, which are the instructions. Think of it kind of like reading a daily recipe. The recipe gives you the list of ingredients, right? That's your data. But it also gives you the step-by-step instructions on how to actually bake the warm, delicious cake. That's your program. Both the facts and the rules safely live inside the student's notebook. And finally, we have input/output, or I/O. In our analogy, the I/O mechanism is the student's pencil used to write down their answers. But it's also their eyes and ears taking in the teacher's instructions in the first place. Input is how the student receives information from the outside world, listening, reading, observing. Output is how the student shares their work back with the world, speaking, drawing, or handing in a written essay. Technically speaking, I/O is all about transferring data to and from the outside world. When you type on a keyboard, you are providing input, just like a teacher handing out an assignment to the class. When the computer finishes its calculation and displays a beautiful picture on your screen, well, that's the output. It's exactly like the student walking up to the front of the class and proudly handing in their finished homework. It's simply how the computer communicates its finished work to us.
So, let's bring back that confusing computer advertisement from the very beginning. Now that we have our student analogy in our back pocket, this ad is no longer intimidating. That Intel i7 quad-core running at 3.9 gigahertz, that just describes a really, really fast brain. Actually, scratch that. It's 4 brains working together. That 32 gigabytes of memory, that just means our student has an incredibly thick, massive notebook to store lots and lots of facts and recipes. And the USB ports and LCD monitor, those are simply the student's eyes, ears, and pencils, the ways they take in our requests and show us the results. See? It's just a student sitting at a desk working at lightning speed.
But before we get entirely swept up in the magic of technology, the researchers behind our source material point out something that I absolutely love. They note that your abilities far surpass those of any computer in the world today, or any that can be built in the foreseeable future. As incredibly fast as a computer's processor is, and as massive as its memory might be, the human brain is still the ultimate machine. Computers are really just mirrors reflecting the logic and creativity of the humans who built them in the first place.
Which leaves us with this final amazing thought. You have a processor far more advanced than any gigahertz chip, and a memory far more nuanced than any gigabyte hard drive. The computer is just a tool. It's a very fast student, just sitting there waiting for you, the teacher, to give it an assignment. So, what incredible things will your own processor and memory create today? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope the magic inside the box feels a little less intimidating now and a whole lot more inspiring. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.